Hey guys, it's Kate. I hope you're having a great day. I'm here with kind of a fun video, and I thought we would do another one just making some fun watercolor blob shapes and then doodling in them. I'm working with cellulose paper today. This is the inexpensive Artist Loft paper from Michaels. So if you have one near you, it's a really fun paper to play with for exercises like this, and you don't have to be too precious with it. I'm also using a watercolor palette. This is the DDD Praise that I got on Temu a really long time ago, and I really don't pull it out very much, so I thought it would be kind of fun to use today. It's not generally a palette that I gravitate to that often, but it really is a lot of fun to use, and the colors are really pretty in it. So I'm just going to grab my number 10 round, and I'm going to start dipping in colors here. You can see my swatch sheet over here, and I have pre-moistened these. They do wet really nicely, so I am going to go ahead and get started. So I have my first sheet here. I'm not taping it down or anything like that, and I'm just going to start pulling out some fun colors. Now, this is cotton paper, so the watercolor tends to kind of sit on top of it. So it acts a little bit differently than the cotton paper, but it's still a lot of fun to use. It tends to dry pretty quickly, and the watercolor doesn't soak in quite as much as with cotton paper, but it's still really a fun paper to use for stuff like this. And as you know, if you have it and this is what you have on hand, it's nice to kind of know how your watercolors and your paper reacts by doing exercises like this too. So I'm just going to make some random kind of blobs here. I'm going to play around with the colors and just have some fun here. Maybe this one can be a rectangle, and I'll probably dip into this gray color. The only thing with this palette is you really don't get color labels. They are numbered. This is the Ocean palette, and I'm not really sure what that means, but that's what we've got. So this leaves quite a few brush strokes and stuff, but it's kind of nice because when you get marks like that, once it dries, it might give you some little ideas of things that you can put in it when you're doodling afterward. And so it's almost, it can be a little bit like reverse coloring that way. And you can see the color kind of spreads out a bit too, which is nice. I'm just kind of going through, I'm choosing some interesting looking colors that I think might go nicely together. And I really love this wet in wet. I'm going to do a few more of these, and some of these colors spread out really nicely. So I'm going to make another brush stroke blob here. And let's go into this light green. Some of them spread more than others, and so we can just play around and see what we get. And I'm going to try to go through a lot of the colors in this palette and just make sure that I get a good variety here on the sheet. I'm going to do another one with just the pure paint and drag this out a bit, and then maybe add a couple little dots. We can play around with our watercolor too and make some fun shapes and marks. Let me add another circle here. And let's do this brown. And just kind of play with the brush and see what happens. Maybe do some marks like that. And then go into this sort of, it's like a slate blue almost. Oh, that's pretty. It's kind of like a Payne's gray a bit when you get it onto the paper. Yeah, that's a nice color. How about this? This is almost like a burnt sienna. And then maybe I can add this sort of darker reddish brown into it. That's pretty. You can see like what kind of color combinations you can get. There's some really interesting color combos, and it's kind of a nice way to experiment with that a bit in your paper and see what is kind of attractive to you. You can see when I tap it down, it just sort of, I don't know what that is. Some of the colors don't travel as much as others. And this also says, like when you get it, it says it's metallic. You can see a little bit of metallic in the palette and the pens themselves, but honestly on paper, it doesn't really look, I never really see too much of a sparkle at all. Like you can kind of see here, it kind of dries pretty matte. You might see a little bit of shine from the water, but like in these ones that are kind of dried, there's not much sparkle at all. All right, I'm going to grab my second sheet and get going on some more blobs. If you like to do these exercises, let me know in the comments below some of the things that you like to do. I kind of like doing the blobs, but there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of do exercises. I've done videos where I had like a whole background filled up on my page, and I've also had some where I just have shapes like this, but there's a lot of things you can do to just experiment with your paint. All right. Oh, I like this color a lot. And I think for this one, maybe I'll let these touch a bit, see what happens. Not much. It's not traveling too much. For this one, I think I'm going to go with this blue again. And maybe add just a couple little blob shapes there. And maybe this really nice green. It's like a grassy green. And maybe we add a little bit of this other green that's a bit darker. Maybe for that one we add some sort of stripes. Let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to go with this blue again. Maybe almost like we're going to do a landscape. And then maybe I can have a green color coming up from the bottom. And maybe we put something in there. Maybe a small circle here. And maybe another small circle here. We can let those touch. But maybe in this one I put a purple. And let those come together. I think I grabbed the same color again. All right. I'm going to leave that as is. Maybe we can make some fun shapes later when we do the doodling over the dried paper. We can just mess around. I'm going to do this purple again. That's a pretty color. Maybe go back to this sort of bluish gray. Bluish green gray. All right, last shape. I'm going to do another wet and wet. I think that's my favorite. I'm going to go into this sort of olive green color and put some at the top and the bottom. And then maybe in the center, we'll do this darker green color. And I think that looks pretty neat. All right, our blobs are all dry and we are ready to doodle. So I was just kind of looking at this, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your doodle style, this kind of turned out like a smiley face. Like it reminds me of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. But I am going to start doodling on these. I've grabbed a couple of white pens. I've got the Jelly Roll and the Uniball, and I have some of these fine liners in different colors. So I'm going to give these a try and we'll just play around with some fun doodles and relax together. So I'm going to put one of these sheets aside and I am going to zoom in a bit so you can see better, and then we will just get started and go one by one. So stick around, relax with me, and we'll just do some doodles together. So for this one, I think I'm going to grab this sort of dark purple and we'll just start playing around. These are supposed to be permanent. They are, let me see, Porous Point pens. They're marker pens, and I think they are permanent once they're dry. So, but I have not tested that. I don't even remember where I got these, but I tested one on a piece of paper and they were pretty nice. Okay, so for this first one, I'm going to go ahead and use my purple. I'm just going to kind of ease into this, and I'm going to lightly trace around the blob that was made with the watercolor. So we have our first shape. I'm going to follow this one and then let that one meet. So we have kind of an interesting mark. And there is no right or wrong. This is almost like a Zentangle. And sometimes it's like, you know, you're sitting here like, what do I see? And I have to see something and I have to, you know, make it perfect. You do not have to do that. You can do anything you want. It's just supposed to be a fun exercise. And there's a great saying that I love that says, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So it's just best to just go with it and let it happen. So I'm just going to start making some little doodle shapes and get warmed up. I really like these fine liners. They write pretty nicely and it doesn't seem to skip over the paper. It's really smooth. I'm going to let this shape kind of switch up a bit and keep these lines going and just let this be kind of a pattern. Just like that. And I might put some little blobs here and there in my lines just to break it up a bit. And I'm not doing it in any specific pattern or order, just kind of scattering them around wherever they feel like they should go. Yeah. Now for these two circle shapes, I think I'm going to make a thicker line around them so they stand out a little bit more, just like this. I like this marker. This marker pen. There's like names for everything. I mean, how many art supplies are there out in the world? It's crazy. You could spend your life savings buying art supplies, and then there's probably 10,000 more products to buy after that. The marketing is excellent, but it's good when you can find something and try something and find what you really love to use and then just keep going back to that. It's great when you find a brand or a company that you really like and you love their product and it just becomes something dependable. I wish I remembered where I got these pens, but I looked online. I think they sell them at Walmart, but I've had them for a while and they just kind of sat there without getting used, and something told me today to give it a shot. This is turning out to be a pretty cool little doodle. I like having the thicker, bold outline that kind of makes the outline stand out a bit. And I think I'm going to grab my white pen to do something in the green area. And I'll just keep it kind of simple, I think. This is a pretty busy pattern, so I might just do some little simple dashes with the white pen. And it's kind of lower contrast with the rest, but you still have kind of an interesting little pattern. Now, do I want to put any white in here? Maybe I'll do white in these two little spots for those circle centers, and maybe I'll add just a few little dashes or dots in here. Why not? And that adds a little bit of brightness to it. So this is that DDD praise on my hand. I'm gonna grab, I've been smudging this all up. Sometimes the stuff just sits on the paper surface. Thank goodness for baby wipes. And I'm going to try to be a little bit more careful so I don't get my hand all over everything. All right, I'm going to keep the white for this one. And I think I'm going to, I have these little blobs here. I think I'd like to turn these into little flowers if I can get my pen to work now. And I'm just making a very rough outline. All the more rough because the pen doesn't always want to write. So I'm going over it a couple of times and just trying to get some nice pigment on there. And then I'm just gonna kind of make my lines down like that. And you know what? I might grab this little gray one here. Yeah, I'll do that so there's a little bit more contrast. I'll do some little tiny leaves and maybe some little dots. Maybe I can do some kind of little dots down here. I think I might turn these into petals too. Add a little bit more detail in the center. And maybe I add a little bit of that gray right to the middle of these too. That's kind of cute and simple. And I might add just a couple little outlines to the outside of those little flowers there, but again, just sort of simple. I'm going to keep with this white and kind of think about what I see in this one. And I've got these sort of dark areas here, and then there's sort of like these swishy spots. And they're really light, but they kind of come up into there. And then you've got this lightness above. And it's almost like it could be sort of like a little forest or something. So maybe I will kind of bring that out a bit. Another low contrast doodle. And let's see what we can do. I'm going to grab the green, and I might even grab a couple of colored pencils on some of these. I don't know, but I'm going to start working on some little tree shapes. And some of these where, you know, we have maybe some tree outlines, I'm going to make these little marks a little bit darker. Almost like you can see like some shadows or some separation in some of these. And I am just making a very random scribbles, like you can see, just to add a little bit of the sort of idea of texture. And I might add a little bit of something down here. And I'm just going to keep on going right with the pen markings and the watercolor marks. So we've got like a little trio of trees. I might have another little bit of something back in the background here, and maybe a little bird. I kind of like that, actually. It's just very simple. And then how about we get this white again? Let me see if I can clean off the tip and add a little bit of white markings in here too. I love using the dark and the white together. It just adds a little bit of something, and you get some extra contrast in there. And it doesn't have to be too much, just a little bit will do the trick. All right, we've got 3 down, and they were, you know, very different, but I really like them. Now this is that one that I kind of made actually look like a little bit of a landscape. And I'm going to just stick with the green that I've got here. And I'm going to start making a few little grasses until I kind of think of what I want to put here. And I'm just sort of scattering them. I'm making them all go sort of the same way. And I'm changing the level of them so that they're not just all, you know, in a row. Yeah. Now this can be kind of like the background, so maybe we have just a few little things, and maybe we have another couple of little flowers here. You know what? I'm gonna grab this red one, or do I want this light purple? Okay, I think I'll do the red purple, and we'll check this one out first. I want to try all the colors and just see what they look like. All right, I am going to just do some little flower shapes, very basic, and I'm just going to make the outline darker on the outside. And I'm kind of making the lines go along with the shape, how I drew it. So, and then the back one, I'm just kind of putting a little dot. All right, let's do maybe one more up here. I'm going to go back to this little green one, and I'm going to give these a couple of really long leaves like they're tulips. And I'm having a lot of fun with this little drawing. Okay, for this next one, I really want to keep the circle pattern going, and I think what I'm going to do is make some round shapes in here, kind of the same size, and they're all going to be grouped together toward the bottom here, if I can get my pen to work. Seems to help a little bit when I clean the tip. I don't know if I'm getting like residue in there, but now it's, oh, there it goes. All right, and then I'm going to start to break it apart here and make it a little bit more further apart, and then I'm just going to put a couple in there, and then I'm going to grab my gray so I can get kind of a dark color, and I'm going to do the same thing down here but coming in the opposite direction, so we kind of have like bubbles that are running into each other just like that. And I like that. Maybe I'll put one more white one kind of up in here, so they're kind of mixing together from the two different sides. Yeah, I like that. That looks pretty cool. Okay, this one is that smiley face one. I honestly, who even knows? This could be like a little moon though. I think I will embrace that. It could be like a little moon crescent, and maybe I can do some little star. You know, you have, I don't know, wasn't it like some Disney thing where you had like the little star kind of hanging down from the moon? Do any of you know what I'm talking about? We have this little star here. I really want it to be a brighter white though. So I really wish I could get that pen going better. Maybe I can try this jelly roll. Nope, that doesn't want to work either. Let's see. All right, I'm breaking out the Posca, and it's thicker than I want, but I think it definitely makes better marks. And then I'll almost add like that little highlight there. I think that looks nice. On to the next one. I'm going to pull this green back out, and I think we should do maybe another little pattern. And this almost reminds me of like a pumpkin. You can kind of see the lines here, but this, who knows what that is. But I'm just going to do where I'm following the shapes again. We have a lot of different shapes in this paint. That looks pretty neat. And I think we have a lot of good starting points to start a doodle. So I'm going to fill each of these with a fun pattern, and maybe we could almost turn it into a texture. So like if we follow these shapes and pick a border to kind of trace around, we might get something really interesting. So like if I start at this corner and I come down this way and follow the outline, as much as I can, and then we might get a really neat pattern effect. Let's see what happens. And I'm gonna even turn this around so that I can just keep going and not get my hand all over the paint. But I kind of like how this looks. And I'm just picking an angle and following it all the way in. So all of these are different, but they'll all go together. This one is an interesting one. Let me do the inside first, and then I am going to just start following this shape. I like this. It's kind of turning into a really interesting texture. Do you like to doodle at home? I'd love to hear in the comments below what you generally doodle. Do you do little abstract patterns like this, almost like a Zentangle? Do you do little mini illustrations? What relaxes you the most, and what do you find most challenging? I'd love to hear from you. I think the challenging ones for me is trying to see something, but sometimes those come out to be my favorite ones because you just never know what'll pop out at you when you're taking a look. So these ones, though, can be surprising also, because when you just start making some simple lines and then you are kind of looking at the finished result, it looks really neat. And there's a lot of visual interest here. There's just a real beauty in simple patterns when they all come together. I mean, just doing like a little weird, kind of abstract shape and just doing simple lines. But when you look at the whole thing, it's like, wow, that's kind of a neat effect that is happening here. And so I think I'm going to leave that just like it is. I really love that texture. So I'm going to put my green pen away and take a look at this. And I think for this one, I was kind of looking and I had a bunch of these sort of dark blobs here. And what my mind might go to first is little flowers, because I love doing little flowers. They're my favorite. But I want to try to do something different. And what I'm going to do first is see if I can get this pen to work. And I am going to outline each of these black or dark shapes. I don't know if they're black, but they are dark. And even the ones that are kind of barely visible, I'm going to try to get those too, just any of the ones that I see. And then we've got a few kind of over here. So what I was kind of thinking was I would maybe connect these and then see what happens from there. So I see like these three are kind of in a row, and I can kind of connect them with a little loop like that, or a little string almost. And maybe I can connect these three, and maybe connect these ones here, just because they almost are in like a natural line. And I will connect these also here at the bottom. And maybe these and these, just like that. And I think that looks pretty neat also. Maybe I'll put, let's see, let me grab this gray and I'll add a few little sort of dashes. I don't really know. It's not going to mean anything. It's just a dark mark. And I'm going to put them just here and there along our little lines, just for some extra texture. Yeah, and I think that one's good. All right, I haven't tried this brown one yet, so I'm gonna go in here. Now I've got some sort of naturally dark spots in here from the watercolor. I'm gonna start there first, and I am gonna make some new blobs. I'm gonna work on a different pattern here, and I am going to just make some interesting little shapes that kind of follow the outline, but I want to still keep them thin enough so that you know that there's darker paint behind it. So it's almost like it's inside of a shape still. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. And they're just going to be thin little sort of blobby lines. See, I think it's maybe the paint that's sort of affecting the way the marker writes, but I'm going to try a different marker just in case. These I've had for a while, so I don't know if they dry out or what. Yeah, this one works much better, so maybe it is that. And then maybe for this one, I'll do some little circles. And this is a little bit lower contrast, but still looks pretty good to me. We almost have like a little composition developing here. Okay, and I'm probably gonna grab maybe this purple and maybe I'll do like a dashed line, just very thin. And I'm doing it inside this sort of light blue area. And I'm not going around into where I have my dots. I'm keeping those sort of clean and I'm keeping things separated. Just like that. And we've got some interesting patterns there. Now I'm going to grab my Posca pen again and I'm going to put some simple white dots in the light green section. So we have this whole blob covered with some kind of pattern, but I'm making my patterns different depending on what the background color is and how dark it is. So the white on the light green is going to be a little bit lower contrast than the other areas, and it will kind of fade to the back just a little bit, and you've got these nice dark marks kind of sticking out, and I like that effect. And we have our first page done, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I tell you what, this can keep you occupied for a long time depending on how detailed you make your doodles. I love the colors in this one. This one came out so pretty, and I am excited to doodle in it. So on this one, I'm going to go with the white, and I'm going to trace down from the top, and I'm just going to put some simple lines in through this blue to get to where it meets the purple, just like that. And it's going to be kind of a low contrast doodle, just like that, I think. I'm cleaning off my pen off to the side regularly, and that seems to help a little bit. So I'll just keep doing that. And I'm going to just keep it simple because I love how that shape looks. So I'm going to put the white away, and I'm going to grab my darker purple here that's going to be kind of similar to the paint color that's already down on the paper. And I am just going to do I think, some border sort of blobs that kind of follow the contour of the edge of the paint. And I'm just going to put them kind of close together so we have an interesting line that kind of comes down through this painting. I'm hoping this all stays in focus. I'm kind of zoomed in, so I'm trying not to get my hand in the way so that I don't want it to focus on my hand instead of the actual paint where I'm doodling. And I'm going to start with that, and I think I'm going to do a second row and just see how it looks. I don't know if I'll fill in the whole thing or not, but I kind of like this texture here. So I'm just going to keep going with it, and I'm just sort of continuing that outline wherever it goes. I think that looks really cool. I'm going to just leave that as is, and I think that's a nice doodle, and it doesn't have to cover the whole entire thing. You can do whatever you want. You could just do a little pattern. The next one that's kind of calling out to me is actually this one down here. I feel like this looks like a really cool flower, and I can kind of see like this could be some sort of vase or container, and you've got a flower here, a flower here, and a flower here. So I'm going to actually do some little cloud gazing outlines, and I grabbed my brown, although I think this is the one that wasn't really working that well before, so I don't know if I have to. Yeah, I'm going to have to grab another one. I think that one might be dry. So I'm going to grab the gray for the little vase, and I might actually grab that red for the rest because I don't think that I have used that yet. So I'm just going to kind of loosely put in this little drawing. It's going to be like a little sort of pyramid shaped vase, I think. And I'm going to put this gray down for right now, and I'm going to grab this red and do my flowers, and then I can kind of fill in around it if I want to. So I feel like this would be a flower center, and I'm just going to follow the outsides where I kind of see them. And I'm just kind of putting in some sketchy sort of outline lines, and I'm letting it go around where I think that flower is. I'm doing the same thing for the center. And this is like a huge flower, but who cares, because this is just sort of cloud gazing. And I'm going to add some more sort of dashes so that we add some texture. And I'm having it all sort of radiate out from the center. So I don't have actual defined petals, but I just have sort of the illusion of a bunch of petals together. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. Now this one, I don't have like an obvious dark center. I'm going to have this one almost like it's facing straight up. So I am going to just do the same thing as before and just follow the outline of that paint. You know what? Maybe I'll make a center in this one because I kind of like it almost as it's opening up sort of a little bit up but sort of towards you. So I'm just going to take some creative license here and do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing and just kind of angle it out where I want it to be angled. Just like that. And to make sure that you can see the difference between two flowers, I'm going to make the outline of this darker and go over it one more time. And that way you can definitely see some extra contrast here. So I'm going to do that with both of these so you can see the flower borders. And then I'm going to do one more right here. And this one is kind of a faded one. I'm going to leave this alone, but I'm going to pick out this other blob right here. And this will be the third flower in our vase. Just like that. Just some simple little lines can make a really cool drawing with lots of texture, pattern, and I'm going to darken this center just like the other ones so you can see the true contrast here. And I'm going to make sure these are nice and dark also. That looks pretty good to me. What I might do is come in here with that green and just kind of darken this up right in here. Maybe add some extra green coming from these edges. And these are just more sort of jagged lines. But they all kind of come together to make something. I think that looks really cool. So I'm going to go back to this gray and just add some extra lines to it down here. And I may add just sort of a rounded shape, almost like it's just got something to sit on here. And it's not quite so empty at the bottom. And I think that one's done. So for this one, I want to use the red color again and make a bit of a pattern. So I'm going to start at the center and make something that almost kind of radiates out from the center. So I'm just going to put a simple little shape here, and then I'm going to start building around it. And it's going to be radiating, maybe sort of like a starburst. I don't really know. I'm just sort of working on this intuitively. So it is not something that is set in stone, but I love the little patterns and the little dots and dashes and lines. And it's so simple, but it ends up looking just really interesting. So I am going to do that. And I'm just going to make up lines as I go and just do whatever feels like it should be next. So I'm having these kind of meet those little loops. And now I guess we do have kind of a flower. And maybe on my next layer, I'm going to do some triangles that point toward the inside crease of each of these loops. And we're just going to keep developing a pattern. Just like that. Now maybe we need something a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do another set of loops so we have a little bit of repetition, almost like a teardrop shape. Just like that. And then maybe between each of them, we do 3 sort of thick dashes. Now, because I'm not working with rulers or any kind of measurement, they're going to be spaced differently, but I love the organic look of this. So I think next, well, what do we want to do next? Maybe I do another set of scallops and I meet everything. And you can rotate your paper whatever you want to do. I'm just going to do it freehand the way my paper is resting, but I do have better luck if I'm kind of going sort of to the right. So I'm sort of starting at the next loop and then I'm going to also come downward in this direction because this is pretty easy for me too. If you're left-handed, it might be a little bit different. And I think I really like that. So on the outside, I'm going to just do some simple dots. And this is going to complete this one. And I'm just sort of putting them in a row, a single row on the outside. I'm not trying to place them in any certain way, just regular intervals. Just around the outside. And I think we can call that one done. This one is going to be interesting because it's all very dark. I might grab my white marker or my white pen and see about doing something that kind of radiates from the bottom. So I'm going to start from the top left and the top right corner. Then I'm going to have some kind of coming up from the center like that. And then I'm just going to keep this going right from the center on the bottom and have it radiate out toward the edges. And I want to make sure that my pen is going to draw effectively. Just like that. So we've got kind of a nice little burst going. And I think I'm gonna just put some simple little leaves, almost like it's a fan of sort of leaf sprigs. And I think I like that pattern for this. It's simple and interesting. And I'm just alternating sides on my way up. Now, I'm kind of avoiding this area right here since I have so many lines coming together in one spot. I might add just a few in there randomly, but I'm not going to try to follow each of these lines because then it will just be way too busy there in the center. So I'm going to have them sort of have a natural end when the lines get so close together that you can't really do anything else that is sort of automatically attached to the line that you're on. So what I'm going to do is just add a few that give the illusion that you have them coming all the way down to the center. And I really like that one just as is. It's a nice little bright one. So we only have 5 more to go here. We are in the home stretch. I'm going to grab my green and I am going to work on this one next. And I really want this to be like a branch with little flowers on it. So, you know, like I didn't do the flowers on this one with the dots, but I think I'll do the flowers on this one. Why not? So I want these to all be connected to one branch. And to me, when I look at this, it kind of naturally groups together 3 here, a single and a single. So I'm going to have my branch kind of come up where these can all sort of come off of it right there. So I'm going to start it about right here. And then I'm going to make it semi-thick and kind of color it in. And this right now is like really high contrast. And then I'm going to have one come up right to this one. And then from the top, I'm going to have this one come over this side just to those. And then come off to these two. This one's going to come a little bit further down, and I'm going to thicken these lines a little bit too, but not too much. I want it to sort of come to a natural end point and taper off like that. And then this one, I'm also going to have come and meet this branch here. And then maybe this one comes there, and this one goes right there. And so we've got our little flower branch, and I really love how that looks. I am going to grab my white and see how this looks. And I might actually grab one of the purples too. We'll see. And I'm going to sort of do a loose outline on each of these, just sort of following along with the edges that I can see in the paint. So they're just sort of organic edges, very messy. And then we have our flowers outlined a little bit. Now I might grab this other lighter purple and kind of go in and make a little bit of sort of centers on these. And that'll add a little bit more contrast to the flowers themselves because we have such a dark branch. and I like how that one looks. So I'm going to leave that just as is and get to the next one. This one here, I mean, honest to God, it reminds me of a globe where you have like your little land masses and a bunch of water. I'm not going to go in that direction, but that is exactly how I imagine it. And I think on this one, I might actually do another kind of fun pattern. And I am going to go, let's see, you know what? Why don't we stay with the white? And I am going to outline first these green shapes. So we have an actual edge to start with. And it's not too much contrast, just enough so that you can kind of see where the edges of the paint are. And like in this area, you can barely see it at all. But here where it gets a little bit darker, you can see that white outline much better. And maybe I'll even do that in the blue. Why not? We might have something kind of like this one here, but maybe with a lighter color. Let's see how it goes. So I'm just going to kind of pick out shapes that I can see and do the outline with the white. And I have kind of a dark area in the green here. I might kind of go around that a bit. And now we have some little doodle spots. So I'm going to put the white, well, you know what? Maybe I'll keep with the white for a minute. I'm going to clean it off a little bit on my baby wipe. And maybe on this one, I do some little dots in some of these shapes. Just like that. And maybe for some of these other ones, I do some little line patterns. So we just have a little bit of texture there. So I'm going to grab, I think this light purple maybe, and we've got that over here. And I think that would be kind of a nice color on top of this blue, because I don't actually have a blue fine liner, so we'll just go with what we've got. And I think for this one, maybe I'll start with sort of a circle pattern along this one here, and I'm going to stay inside my white border lines and just follow them to the end, just like that. And maybe I'll do that over here also. This is a bit higher contrast because I'm at the really light section of the blue, and I'm still staying inside my white pen lines and inside the shape there. Now maybe on this one, we do one more like that with the circles, and I'll do this dark blue blob so that we have 3 areas with little circles, and then I'll probably do a different shape inside the other ones, but we'll still have a pattern going on. And I think this one is looking pretty cool too. You know, I really love these ones that kind of turn out like little Zen tangles. I mean, they're nothing, but they're just really cool to do. They're relaxing, they're fun to look at. So I hope you give this a try if you haven't. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just have some fun with your pens, colored pencils, markers, whatever you've got. And sorry if you have some extra noise. We live near some farms, and they are doing a whole bunch of farm stuff. They're planting, the tractors are out, so there might be some background noise, but it's kind of funny since we've moved here a few years ago, we don't even really hear it anymore, but I'm always conscious of it when I've got video going and there's little trucks that go by and stuff. Anyway, I love this one. I guess I decided to do dashes while I was talking about tractors. So these could be like little rows of planted corn or whatever it is they're doing out. So actually, it is a corn year. So it's kind of funny. In the farm next to us, they alternate between corn and soybeans. And soybeans are legumes, and so they are nitrogen fixers. And so any of you gardeners out there, you know what a nitrogen fixer is, but nitrogen is one of the nutrients that plants really love. And soybeans, actually being a legume, they produce nitrogen that goes into the soil. And so the farms around here, they alternate crops. So they'll do corn one year, and corn is like a nitrogen hog. It loves lots of nitrogen. And so it's almost like it naturally fertilizes itself, because they'll do a crop of soybeans, and then the soybeans will deposit nitrogen, and then they'll follow it up the following year with a crop of corn, which uses up the nitrogen, and then they'll go back to soybeans. And so every year they alternate with something different. And so because we have those fields around us, when we are here, we love the corn years because it's almost like a natural privacy fence, and they grow, 7 or 8 feet high, and it's just kind of nice to have that privacy. But the view is always changing around here, because then we'll have a soybean year and they might do, I don't know, maybe knee high or so. And so then you can see much further, because we're in the Midwest and it's very flat land around here that's used for agriculture. And so then it just changes all the time, but it keeps it interesting, keeps us on our toes. So I'm just following along while I'm chatting with some of these natural sort of paint edges and picking out some shapes. This is sort of a very abstract pattern as well, but it's just very basic, and I'm just following natural edges that I can see. I was kind of thinking this looked like a pretty shrub or something, but upside down. And I switched colors to my red so that we could have another bit of contrast here. I think I have one more shape there, and I really enjoy that. I think that looks pretty cool. You know what I might do is grab this Posca again and maybe just put in a few little white dots in the green area. Just to have some extra fun. And that'll kind of up the contrast there and add another bit of visual interest. And I think I like that. All right, we have 2 more to go. These 2, and these have a ton of texture. This one, I think I want to do some more flowers. I'm not sure about this one yet. There's a lot going on here in this little box, and it has very rough edges too. I really tried to do a lot of variety with my brush, and so it gave me a lot of interesting things to try to doodle on. So let's do this one, and I am going to grab the dark purple and get going. So I see some flower shapes, and I am kind of just gonna go loosely around here and just doodle where I kind of see these edges. And I might just make my dark centers. Maybe I have a dark center here. And I'm keeping my line edges really rough. And then maybe we add a couple of little stems. And some rough leaves. I think that looks pretty good too. I'm going to add some white to this one because it's a very dark background, and I've got dark on dark here. We do have a couple of areas of lightness, but I'm going to add some more lightness with my white pen. So I'm just going to get it wiped off a little bit and maybe add just a few little dots down here just to add some brightness to it and a little bit more texture. to a background. Yeah, I think that looks nice. All right, last one. And I'm going to need to think on this one for a second. Okay, for this last one, I am going to break out my first colored pencil for today. This is number 154, and it's like a pretty sort of turquoise blue. And I kind of see like a little waterfall here with maybe coming down off of some sort of cliff and some bushes or rocks or something kind of surrounding it. So I'm going to try to draw that out a little bit, but I want to make add a different color in here and make it blue water. And so I'm going to have it coming down from the top here. And I'm going to add some more texture over it, but this is where I just really want to add the color on top so that it looks more like water, because this one is just green. And so I'm even going to add a little bit to it and have it coming right down off of my shape here. And I'm going to work on getting the saturation up a little bit. So I'm just going to go over it a couple of little times. Just like that. And I think that looks really cool with it kind of coming off, coming down here. It just leaves the lines completely. So I'm going to grab my white pen and I'm going to make some fun little dashes here to kind of signify the direction of the flow. And so I'm going to start with that, and this is going to be very abstract, but we definitely have a nice flow going here. I'm just going to make sure that we've got plenty of marks. And so there's our water. I'm going to put my white pen away and grab my dark green, and I'm going to kind of outline some of these other shapes here. And I'm going to make some of these kind of like rocks, like these really dark ones. I think I am going to make these rocky, and I'm going to almost color them in, not completely, but I'm going to just make them look very different than the bushes that I'm planning on sketching. And I'm going to make these kind of craggy, and maybe another one right here. So these are our very dark elements. Now I'm going to come back in with my pen and sort of go around and make these almost look like little bushes. Or trees or some kind of greenery. And I might do some darker outlines just so that you got a little bit of variation in the colors here. And I'm just sort of making these squiggly marks, almost like they could be leaves of some kind. One here, and then maybe just a few little hints of something up there. So we have a lot of different levels of detail, just like that. And we have ourselves a little simple waterfall with just some little details kind of around it. And I really like this one too. We have a little abstract waterfall, and that does all of our shapes. So I'm going to zoom out a bit so you can see both sheets next to each other, all those doodles that we did together. And this was a lot of fun, and I hope that you joined along with me, made some blobs to doodle in, and just had some fun putting down whatever marks. We've done a little bit of everything here. We've done some complete abstracts, some little patterns, and just all sorts of things. Like, you don't have to keep to one theme. You don't have to do one thing. Just have fun, loosen up. This is great practice for doodling and mark making, but also it's just a great activity to loosen up before you do some other piece of painting or whatever it is that you're going to do. And I just love these. So I hope you like them as much as I do. I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration for projects of your own. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating.